Meet Marcus. 26 years old. Works a normal job. Nothing special about his income. But by the time he's 35, he'll have more financial freedom than most people twice his age. And meet Jordan. Same age as Marcus. Similar income. Same city. At 50, Jordan will still be wondering where all his money went. Same starting point. Completely different lives. The difference isn't income. It isn't luck. It isn't even discipline, not the way most people think about it. It's that Marcus learned the rules of each money milestone before he arrived at it. And Jordan didn't. My name is Astrid, and today we're going to talk about the 3 net worth milestones that genuinely change everything. Not because of the numbers themselves, but because each one is a completely different game, with completely different rules, completely different traps, and a completely different version of you required to survive it. Miss the rules, and more money just accelerates your existing mistakes. Learn them, and the math starts working in ways that feel almost unfair. Stay until the end, because the 3rd milestone is the one nobody warns you about, and it might be the most dangerous of all. Quick note before we start, I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing here is financial advice. These are patterns I've studied, observed, and in some cases lived through myself. Your situation is specific. The details always matter. Now, let's talk about what actually happens when your net worth starts to climb. First, let me define net worth clearly, because a lot of people get confused here, and that confusion costs real money. Your net worth is not your income. It's not your savings account balance. It's the total value of everything you own: investments, savings, property, minus everything you owe. Student loans, car payments, credit card debt, your mortgage. Assets minus liabilities. That number. That's your net worth. So if you have $15,000 in a Roth IRA, $5,000 in savings, and you owe $12,000 on a car loan and $3,000 in credit card debt, your net worth is $5,000. Not $20,000. $5,000. This matters because a lot of people feel stuck without understanding why. They're earning decent money. They have some savings. But their net worth is flat or negative because their debt load is quietly consuming every dollar of progress they make. Here's what most financial content skips. The game changes at specific thresholds. There are milestones where the strategy that worked perfectly before will start to actively hold you back. Where the psychological traps flip entirely. Where the same decision that built wealth at one level destroys it at the next. The 3 milestones are $10,000, $100,000, and $500,000. Each one is a different game. Each one needs a different player. Milestone 1. $10,000. Marcus hit $10,000 on a Thursday in February. He remembers the day. He took a screenshot. He felt something he hadn't felt about money before. Not relief, not excitement. More like arrival. Like he'd finally made it through the gate. And that feeling, that completely reasonable, completely human feeling, almost destroyed his progress. Because $10,000 is not arrival. $10,000 is the starting line. Here's what most people don't understand. Until you have $10,000 in real net worth, you're playing financial defense. Every decision is about survival. Building an emergency fund so one unexpected expense doesn't send you back into debt. Clearing high-interest balances so the compound math stops working against you. Learning the basic mechanics of where your money actually goes. That defensive phase is necessary. But it has an endpoint. The moment you cross $10,000 real net worth, assets minus debts, the game changes. You're no longer playing defense. You're ready to play offense. And if you don't switch strategies at exactly this point, you will keep doing defensive things in an environment that now rewards offensive ones. Marcus almost made this mistake. He spent 18 months getting to $10,000 through extreme caution, and his first instinct was to keep doing the same thing. To keep cutting expenses. To keep hoarding cash in a savings account. To keep playing safe. That instinct served him beautifully up to $10,000. It would have slowly strangled him beyond it. Because here's the thing about compounding that people understand intellectually but never feel until it's happening. When you had $2,000 saved, a 10% return was $200. When you have $10,000, it's $1,000. When you have $50,000, it's $5,000. When you have $100,000, it's $10,000. The math starts working for you in ways that feel almost unfair, but only if you stop defending and start growing. Each level of money requires a different version of you. At $10,000, the old version, cautious, defensive, spending-focused, has done its job. The new version needs to learn how to let money work. There's another trap at $10,000 that nobody warns you about. I call it the expert trap. When you hit $10,000, you're probably the most financially aware person in your immediate circle. Your friends are still spending everything. Your family hasn't saved this much. And that relative sophistication creates a dangerous confidence. You start giving advice. You start feeling certain. You start making decisions based on a level of expertise that your experience doesn't actually justify yet. Marcus fell into this. He put money into things he didn't fully understand because he thought understanding the basics meant he understood everything. He didn't lose everything. But he made overconfident moves that cost him real time. The $10,000 milestone teaches you that saving is possible. It does not teach you how to invest. Those are completely different skills. The right move at $10,000, automate everything. Set up recurring transfers into your investment account, Roth IRA, index funds, whatever aligns with your situation, to move money the same day your paycheck arrives. Before you see it. Before it feels spendable. The enemy of wealth building is not stupidity. It's friction. Every month you have to manually decide to invest is a month present bias can talk you out of it. Automation removes the decision entirely. Then do one other thing. Start learning about the next level before you need to execute it. Not because you need to act now, but because when your balance grows, and it will, you need to know what game you're about to enter. And the next game is different. Very different. Milestone 2, $100,000. 10 years later, Marcus is watching Jordan post Instagram photos of a new car. Marcus is driving a 5-year-old Civic. His apartment is decent, but not impressive. He doesn't talk about money much, because there's nothing flashy to show. Jordan has a lease on a BMW, a beautifully decorated apartment, and a net worth of approximately $8,000. Marcus just crossed $100,000. Here's something worth sitting with. The median American between 35 and 44 has a net worth of around $135,000. But that number is pulled up by the ultra-wealthy. The real median, what the typical person in that bracket actually has, is far lower. Which means if you hit $100,000 in your late 20s or early 30s, you are genuinely, statistically ahead. Not rich, but ahead. And this is the exact moment when the most seductive trap in personal finance activates. I call it the lifestyle inflation cliff. After years of delayed gratification, the $100,000 feels earned. It feels like permission. Like the signal to finally upgrade the car, the apartment, the vacations, the dinners out. And maybe a little of that is fine. But here's the math nobody shows you at this moment. $100,000 left alone in an index fund at 8% annual returns for 25 years becomes $685,000. Without you adding another dollar. Just that money, compounding quietly. But if you celebrate $100,000 by pulling $20,000 for a car down payment, upgrading to an apartment that costs an extra $800 a month, and increasing your general spending enough to cut your monthly investment contributions in half, you don't just lose the $20,000. You derail the compounding at exactly the moment it's about to accelerate. This is the cliff. Not a gradual erosion. A cliff. The habits that got you here will keep you stuck here if you let the arrival feeling trick you into thinking the work is done. Jordan upgraded at $100,000. He didn't stop investing entirely. He just loosened up. A little here, a little there. 5 years later, he's at $130,000. Marcus is at $340,000. Same income. Different decisions at a single inflection point. There's a second trap at $100,000 that hits a specific kind of person, and I think it's actually more dangerous than lifestyle inflation. Overcomplication. When you hit 6 figures, suddenly you're interesting to people who sell financial products. A financial advisor wants a meeting. A colleague mentions options trading. A family member has a real estate opportunity. A social media ad is promoting a course on alternative investments. And all of this feels like leveling up. Like you've graduated from the beginner table to the sophisticated investor's table. But here's the brutal truth. Most complexity at $100,000 is a fee-generating trap dressed up as sophistication. Whole life insurance pitched as an investment. Actively managed funds with high expense ratios. Complex real estate partnerships where you're a passive investor with limited control and unlimited downside. These things target people at $100,000 because you have enough money to matter but not quite enough to have a team protecting you from bad advice. More money doesn't fix bad strategy. And at $100,000, the boring playbook is still correct. Low-cost index funds. Tax-advantaged accounts maxed out. Time in the market. What changes at this level isn't the instruments, it's the tax strategy around them. The psychological shift that has to happen at $100,000 is this. Stop thinking like someone building wealth and start thinking like someone managing it. The builder asks, how do I get more? The manager asks, how do I protect what's compounding while continuing to grow it? You need both now. But without the managerial instinct, you're vulnerable. One more thing about $100,000. This is when your peer group becomes a specific kind of danger. Not because they're trying to influence you, but because spending is contagious. And watching Jordan's Instagram, the car, the trips, the apartment, creates a low-grade psychological pressure that doesn't announce itself loudly. It just quietly makes your 5-year-old Civic feel a little more embarrassing every month. The $100,000 milestone requires invisible wealth. Assets that don't photograph well. Progress that doesn't get likes. A game that looks boring from the outside and looks like freedom from the inside. That's a hard sell. But 10 years later, you'll understand it entirely. Milestone 3, $500,000. Most financial content treats $500,000 like a celebration. A finish line. The point where everything gets easier. Where you've beaten the game. Marcus hit $500,000 at 38. And the first thing he felt was not what he expected. He felt terrified. Because the numbers were different now. Not the returns, the losses. When he had $10,000 and the market dropped 20%, he lost $2,000. Painful. When he had $100,000, he lost $20,000. Stressful. But at $500,000, a 20% market correction means $100,000 gone. In paper value. In a few months. Sometimes in a few weeks. $100,000. Temporarily, hopefully. But gone from the screen. And I want to be honest about what that feels like, because until you've experienced it, you genuinely don't know how you'll respond. Intellectually, you know the market recovers. You know selling in a downturn locks in losses. You've watched the videos. You understand the math. And then you open the app and see that you've lost the equivalent of 2 years of income in 90 days. That's when the rational knowledge in your brain enters a full-scale war with your nervous system. And most people lose that war. Not completely. Not forever. But enough. They shift to cash temporarily. They stop contributing until things stabilize. They sell some positions just to be safe. And then the recovery happens fast, without announcement, and they miss it entirely. This is the $500,000 trap. The dollar amounts are now large enough to trigger the fight or flight response in people who had perfectly rational strategies at lower balances. Your risk tolerance is not a fixed number. It's a function of what losing money actually feels like at the scale you're operating at. The override isn't discipline. The override is a pre-written policy, made now, while you're calm, for exactly what you will do in a downturn. Write it down. Sign it. If my portfolio drops 30%, I will increase contributions rather than decrease them. I will not sell any equity positions. I will review this plan in 12 months. Making the decision before the panic removes the decision from the panic. Marcus did this. He had the document. When the correction came, he pulled it out, read it, contributed more, and didn't touch his positions. Jordan didn't have a document. Jordan sold at the bottom. Jordan bought back in 6 months later, higher. Same market. Different outcomes. But there's a second danger at $500,000 that's almost the opposite of panic. And this one is quieter and in some ways more permanent. The feeling of enough. At $500,000, depending on your age and lifestyle, some people start to feel like they might actually have enough. Not retire tomorrow enough. But enough to slow down. Enough to relax the discipline. Enough to start spending more freely on the things they've been deferring for years. This feeling, understandable, legitimate, earned, quietly redirects the trajectory of financial life in ways that don't become visible until much later. Because here's what happens to $500,000 left alone. At 8% annual returns, $500,000 becomes $1.6 million in 15 years. In 20 years, $2.3 million. In 25 years, $3.4 million. The compounding is violent now. Every year of growth is generating returns larger in absolute terms than entire years of earlier savings. This is the exponential phase. The part the math has been building toward since you started. Stopping at $500,000 because you feel secure is like stopping a marathon at mile 20. The finish line is visible. The hardest part is behind you. This is exactly the wrong time to slow down. The third trap at $500,000 is identity, and it's subtle enough that most people don't see it until it's already shaped their decisions. At $500,000, people know you're good with money. They've built a story about you. The responsible one. The smart one. The one with a plan. And that identity creates invisible pressure. You avoid certain investments because they might seem risky to the people who see you as conservative. You hold underperforming assets too long because admitting a mistake feels like a threat to the reputation you've built. Real wealth building at $500,000 means making decisions based entirely on what's financially optimal, not on maintaining the story people have constructed around you. Which sometimes means looking aggressive. Sometimes means looking conservative. And always means ignoring what other people think about your portfolio. Here's the thing nobody tells you about these 3 milestones. The skills that get you to each one are not the skills that take you beyond it. $10,000 is built on discipline, spending less than you earn, directing the difference somewhere intentional. $100,000 is built on consistency, staying in the game through the boring middle, through lifestyle temptation, through the feeling that it's not working fast enough. $500,000 is built on clarity. Clarity about what the money is actually for. Not in the abstract. Not financial freedom as a concept. But specifically, what does a Tuesday afternoon in the life you're building look like? What are you doing? Who are you with? What does it feel like to have genuine options? Because if you can't answer that clearly, you will hit each milestone and feel less satisfied than you expected. The number moves. The finish line moves. You optimize for the metric instead of the life. And those are two completely different projects that only overlap some of the time. Marcus crossed $500,000, and he knew exactly what it was for. A specific kind of Tuesday. A specific kind of freedom. He'd been able to describe it since he was 26. Jordan crossed $100,000 and spent it upgrading toward a life that looked successful from the outside. He's still chasing a feeling he can't quite name. Same starting point. Completely different lives. 10 years later, same income, different outcomes. Not because of talent. Not because of luck. Because one person learned the rules before he needed to play by them. $10,000 is not a rival. It's the moment you stop playing defense and start playing offense. Automate your investments, learn the next level before you need it, and resist the overconfidence that comes from being the most financially aware person in your circle. $100,000 is not a reward. It's the most vulnerable milestone of the 3, where lifestyle inflation and fake sophistication are most seductive and most dangerous. Stay boring. Stay consistent. The compounding is about to activate, and this is exactly when most people derail it. $500,000 is not the finish line. It's the exponential phase, where the math does the heavy lifting and your job is to not panic, not plateau, and not let the identity people have built around you make your financial decisions for you. 3 milestones. 3 completely different games. 3 versions of yourself you'll need to become. The only question is whether you learn the rules before you arrive or after. Marcus is 35. He already knows what his $500,000 milestone looks like. He's been preparing for it for 9 years. Start learning yours now.